And political affairs analyst Habib Salahu joins me now on the news via Skype from St. Louis, Missouri to discuss this. Good to have you join us, Habib Salahu. Now, can we expect this to be a more civil battle of ideas than the presidential shoutfest last week?
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's going to continue because of the intensity on the varying opinions that people have concerning the elections, and particularly the role that COVID-19 will be playing in today's debate. So we expect that it's going to be intense, a little bit more civil than the initial presidential debate.
So in Washington, the job of the VP is generally viewed as just a ceremony and not much power. But in 2020, it looks like the vice presidency has suddenly assumed real importance in American politics. Why do you think that is?
Okay, I would explain. Recently, I was driving through West Virginia and I heard over the radio one of the popular conservatives in saying that there are reports saying the Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden has failing health issues, and that if anything happens to him, Kamala Harris will become the president. So people are now paying attention to who the vice president is, and the eventual possibility of anything of such happening. Though it's all propaganda, but I mean it's beyond just the initial ceremonial activities that people always assume the vice presidential place. Like in the U.S. now, Mike Pence heads some committees that have to do with coronavirus. So there may be a lot of questions to him tonight just to justify his role.
Absolutely. I was just going to ask you about that. He is the head of the coronavirus committee, the White House coronavirus committee. And when you look at the approval ratings for that committee, especially for him and the president, it's a bit on the low side when you compare it to people like Fauci, Dr. Fauci. Do you think that that's something that Kamala Harris could weigh on tonight?
Yeah, I expect Kamala to do that. During her time in the Senate, you've always seen how she can be very aggressive with her questions. She's a trained attorney and all that. But the thing is, there's a lot of you have various opinions in the country. Some people believe COVID-19 is like they call it, pandemic, and so the base of the president, they tend to look at COVID-19 as some sort of orchestrated plan to put the country down. And you've seen how his response to his speedy recovery from the virus. So both parties will be trying to appeal to their bases. And but we've seen how COVID has torn the country apart, and I believe Kamala is going to hit really hard on that.
So we see that for the presidential debate is a series of debates, but for the vice presidential debate is just once. But do you think that has any sort of impact, or the impact of how they perform, would they have any sort of implication on the likelihood of their candidates emerging?
Yes. For the Biden presidency, he has an African-American, South Asian running mate. So that naturally talks to Black people, talks to Asian people. I mean, the prelude to this was that the government is trying to tighten the noose on H1, the visa, right? And that predominantly those who benefit from this are from Southeast Asia. So there is a significant contribution from Kamala Harris in this case. So if people are paying attention, they are also looking at how the second in command has a say in how the affairs of the country are being run. During the Obama time, Biden was quite relevant. We've seen much and heard less of Mike Pence. So it's quite critical to how the elections will play out. Many people will base their decisions to support either candidate based on the performance of the vice president and Kamala Harris.
So for some other issues, we know that the main issue will be how the coronavirus has been handled in the U.S. But there's also the issue of the Black Lives Matter and police reforms. When you look at these three issues, who do you think that has an edge? Would it be Mike Pence, or would it be Kamala Harris?
So, Mike Pence was a former governor and Kamala Harris was an attorney general. So there's some sort of sympathy towards Black Lives Matter because Kamala Harris is half black. But then this government generally has continuously said law and order. And that's not what we're fighting. We're not talking about law and order. We're just talking about justice. So there's a mention of law and order, it seems like you're trying to deal with a ruthless set of people, as opposed to ensuring that people not only have freedom, but they also have rights. So when it comes up today, I wouldn't be surprised if the vice president continues to insist on law and order, making the other party look like a supporter of people who want to break law.
All right, so there are also
Yeah.
challenges for Kamala Harris during her time as a prosecutor. Could that also be a challenge for her tonight?
It will come up. Besides that, there have also been some policy somersaults based on her take on health insurance and Medicare in America. Initially, she went with what Senator the senator from Vermont, where he was saying, Sanders, and then she came up with something else. And now she's also pandering towards affordable health care, which is better known as Obamacare. So there will be questions, about where exactly she stands, because she's been in the middle of about 3 different policy directions on healthcare. So yeah, she's going to be hit based on that.
Absolutely, because during the campaign, or during the campaigns for the Democratic nominees, she had very different policies when you compare them to that of the former Vice President Joe Biden. But she seems to have taken on some of his policies. But what do you think would be the biggest issue tonight? And what do you think that Americans will be looking out for?
COVID-19. It's going to be more about the virus. It's going to be more about how the country has failed to tackle it, how the number of deaths have continued to increase. There was a report this morning saying the major age group that gave President Trump support during the last elections, those that we call baby boomers, people over 75, he's trailing by 27 points now. And why is that? That is the major group that has suffered the most. Well, out of over 200,000 Americans that have died, 150,000 of them are people over 75. They're the most vulnerable. So it would matter. I can understand the stance the president is trying to put out to say, hey, I got COVID, I fought COVID. So how many people in America have the kind of medical attention and privilege that the president has? And we're being told that he's on steroids. So the regular 9-to-5 or pensioner who's just relying on his 401k has basic health insurance. How can he deal with COVID in less than a week? COVID is real. It's killing people every day. So that's going to be number one on this. And then there'll also be the issue of racial equity, balance, and then law and order. We're going to hear a lot of law and order as well.
Political affairs analyst Habib Salawu, thanks for talking to us.